we're going to go straight into Ben's deck list for Kantai Collection.
Yeah, I was interviewing Ben about this deck list beforehand today, asking him to what extent he thought it was a standard Kantai deck list. And he started by refusing the question, saying that there was no standard Kantai deck list because there are so many options that the set has that are, competitive and good. But so, knowing that he has all those options, we can look at this list and extrapolate a lot about the kind of player that Ben is. The fact that he's running the Zuiho combo means that he has a lot of deck control, and that he wants to win the board at level 1 by walling up at around 758k. We can see that he's including Iowa, which is more of a 2-turn tip and kill kind of card, with only a little bit of burn, and mostly just healing if he's choosing not to use the anti-heal. But since he is running the anti-heal, more likely just ruining Jon's compression by stacking cards on top. Outside of that, it's just a pretty standard Kanzai shell. Nothing super exciting. There are on Climax Place bounce to stock Slayers, which are quite interesting, but probably won't come up in this matchup.
Yeah, having gone against this deck myself in round 1, this deck does pride itself on being very hard to kill at level 1. Those Zuihos are incredibly tanky when you put a Z3 behind them, and it makes it very scary to attack over them, even if you're a bit bigger, just because of the amount of extra power a counter and Z3's extra effect can throw out.
Yeah, exactly. Let's hop over to Jon's list to see what Ben will be playing up against.
As a lot of people familiar with the metagame at the moment know, the most recent key 20th set gave Charlotte a lot of extra goodies to play with. Most importantly, it made the now combo at level 3 much more consistent to pull off, mainly due to the 2-1 back row, which gives the now an extra 1500 power on top of the 2000 it already gives to level 3 or higher, and gives it a hexproof effect. For those of you familiar with Magic terms, hexproof means it cannot be targeted by card effects, making it really hard to get off the board, especially when it's sitting there at least 13-5 on the defense.
Yeah, and one of the most important things present in the new key set was this now level 1 combo, which is uninteractive and consistent. And it's really kind of the only thing holding Charlotte back from being competitive beforehand. We see Jon is running the anti-burn, of course, which isn't going to hurt Ben too much because he's like the Iowa's only on-play burn 1, but it is going to be a little bit disruptive.
Yeah, it does put Ben in the interesting position of deciding whether or not he wants to use the anti-heal, because if Jon is playing this anti-burn and Ben plays the anti-heal, then all those Iowas are doing is an on-attack put a card on top of deck, which is a lot less impressive when you take away all the other effects that card has.
Yeah, it is worth noting that Jon's running the Twin Sisters heal package and early play heals, and that might be enough to bully Ben into playing the anti-heal and just maybe fronting the 2 stock cost, because Kansai is very light on stock expenditure throughout the game. It's an interesting matchup with a lot of complexity, so we should hop straight into the game.
So top to bottom, 1 to 3.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Both players just doing their initial shuffles and deciding who goes first.
Poggers is first, Sag is second.
Rest.
So, who do you favor in this matchup?
That's an interesting one. I was going over both of these deck lists against each other very, very carefully before this game started, and I feel like Ben wins the early game very hard, but with the position kind of being strong-armed into playing the anti-heal puts him, combined with the anti-damage that Jon gets, I feel like Jon has a much bigger edge in the late game.
Here's an interesting statistic for you. Ben's deck has 7 soul triggers, and Jon's deck has 22.
Wow. That is incredible.
Particularly because I think Ben will want to have a damage lead going into the late game because the Now can have so much control over the damage flow. It's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, another kind of interesting statistic I noticed as well, based on specific cards. We saw in John's list that he's running a level 2. I think her name is Ayumi. That on attack, you reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's an anniversary or the appropriate Charlotte trait or an event, you give out 3k to a character of your choice, which can put that Now combo to quite high power, but it is just short of beating out Ben's 1/1s if he has a Z3 and a counter ready to go.
The Z3 is actually going to be really essential for this matchup. The Now level 1 combo on their own swing at 7-5, which is the perfect breakpoint to tie with the Zuihos without the Z3 support. So Ben will definitely be digging for it. He's only got 2 copies, so it's not a sure thing that he'll be able to get it. Whether he does or not will the effects of it will kind of spiral out as the game continues.
It's going to be very important to try and get to level 1 first, I think, for Ben, just to force John to play around these Zuihos rather than using the Zuihos to play around the Nows.
It's a really difficult position for Ben to be in because he has to juggle wanting to hit level 1 first and wanting to set up with wanting that damage lead that he's not going to have access to so much at level 3.
Yeah, the damage lead is going to be a big hurdle to try and overcome because, like you said, and I still can't quite believe that statistic of Ben only running like 7 soul triggers in his deck. Though I guess that does make sense when he's only running Book and Gate as his climaxes. But
Yeah, well,
when you're forced inside those Nows, that's not a lot of chances to deal any damage there.
No, all of his soul triggers are his LE plays and his Iowas, which are the things he'll want to be playing down at around that stage of the game anyway.
Yeah.
It's very unlikely that he'll be able to slide and still deal damage.
Yeah, I think Ben is just going to have to kind of hope in the late game that John doesn't manage to set up the Nows in multiple lanes and have climaxes for multiple of them. Otherwise, he's just not going to get damage through.
Yeah, I don't know how common it is for a Charlotte list to only be running 3 of them now instead of 4.
That is an interesting detail that I noticed as well. Normally, you want to try and make that consistent as possible, but at the same time, you don't always go for it. You don't really try to put 3 in play because you never really have the climaxes to have all 3 out. I think John is relying a bit more on having this heal loop going on, which is why he's cut the Now down slightly.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important that Ben has the anti-heal in this matchup.
And I do believe he has one out on the board already. Yes, he does in the 1 lane. Getting that into memory as quick as he can is going to be incredibly important. Whether he crashes it because John tries to side around it, or whether John just kills it, he's going to need it in there before level 3, and I think he'll get this because
sure.
I don't believe Charlotte has any access to just killing level 0s on the stage.
If it does, John isn't running it. What? An interesting note in Ben's list is he's running the Hibiki that the anti-heal changes into, which I think at this point is kind of niche. Not many people still run that package because it just feels like a bit of an overcommitment, and you're quite happy to just pay the 1 stock for the anti-heal. You don't need the 1-0 that goes with it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a curious card to run alongside it. For those who don't know what the card that it goes with is, it is just a simple 105k body. If you have the Hibiki in memory, it gains an additional 1000. So it's sitting at a 6k body on field, 6-5 if you've got like the Z3 out as well. But I guess that's like reasonable power on offense and defense as well with the Z3. But yeah, it doesn't feel like it has a very specific place when the Zuihos already get quite big.
Yeah, it's it's essentially a slightly better vanilla that you can change into, but it's not like level 0 lasts forever. Although having said that, Ben is on 0.5 with it out, so what do we
Yeah.
know? We're just casters.
Having the going for the change at level 0, I guess, can profit you quite well at level 0 when a 6.5, well, a 6k body is quite difficult to get over. Not many decks can even come close to beating that at level 0. So you do get that little bit of immediate value out of it, but long term you don't really see too much. But maybe that is the purpose of it, just so you've got that extra body on board after the Hibiki goes to memory.
So we have Ben has his anti-heal good to go, and Jon has his anti-damage on the board ready to piece off. So we're going to be having a very fun vanilla swing game.
Yeah, we saw Jon just killing that Hibiki just to get it out of the way straight away. I think we're probably going to see the same with Ben. There's not really much point siding against the level 0, as Jon's going to get it into memory eventually, and if it would just be an extra attack on the board ready to go if he sided. So I'm expecting it to just die straight away and start doing its thing.
Yeah, neither player has any good removal tools for threats like this. There are no killer card techs. There are no stock bombs or clock bombs or anything like that. So uh, it would be insane for either of them to try and side over this card and try and not reverse it ever. It's just not feasible. So it's just worth killing the thing that's going to be attacking otherwise, denying the card advantage that they could be giving for free.
Yeah, both players are kind of just accepting that they need to deal with the anti whatever the other opponent has, and just kind of like take it as it goes. I feel like in the battle of both players not having access to burn or heal, I think even though Jon loses his heal loop package, it doesn't affect the now in any shape or form, but it does a lot to hurt Iowa. So I feel like Jon does get the edge there.
Interestingly, we're seeing Ben play over his Inazuma, which is a pay one clock one search for a level 1 or lower, and in doing so, forcing himself up to level 1. Even though Jon hit level 1 first, he didn't play his level 1s toward. So Ben still has the opportunity to set up first.
Yeah, we were talking about Ben wanting to hit level 1 first just to get those Zuihos out. And Jon hitting level 1 first would have been a very good opportunity to get some immediate value out of that. And it's going to be kind of... He's still going to be able to do his now combo at level 1, but they're probably going to be crashing most likely into these Zuihos rather than like staying on the board for a turn just to soak up a little bit of damage.
I don't think we're going to see Ben play a Z3 here. So it's likely Jon will be able to threaten ties with the Zuihos and force Ben to counter or lose value, which will be important.
I'm expecting Jon to try and dig hard for the Ayumi just to guarantee getting bigger, because if the Z3 isn't on board, then between the now combo and a boost off the Ayumi, he actually can, I believe, get out of counter range of a Zuiho at 1-1.
Without Z3, absolutely.
I believe the full reach of Zuiho without Z3 on the board is just 7-5 with both back rows, 2k from the counter makes a 9-5, but you can get the now up to 10-5 with the Ayumi boost.
Only in one lane though.
Only in one lane, true, but you can still get the other tying, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, for sure. Ben will be looking for counters to try and win at least 2 lanes out of 3. And because this game is going so quickly, we see him grabbing the Climax Play Bouncer stock in the hopes of generating some value, just so that he can actually play down his level 3s when he gets there.
Yeah, an interesting thing to note about his list actually on the subject of those level 3s is his red splash is basically just the gate, the Iowa combo, the 2 counters, and the 3 Saratogas that he's running. It's quite a small red splash, and a lot of them are cards that you would either be playing or might otherwise not be seeing like the field that might not be seeing the field that much. Like the Saratogas have that ability where they can go to stock when the opponent plays a climax, but obviously that can run the risk of keeping them out when you need them.
It's quite reminiscent of early set 2 Bang Dream decks that would splash for Musashis by running 4 of the bounce to stock slayers.
Frank combo.
We see Ben very carefully milling through his deck, making sure to get as many climaxes into refresh as possible.
We do see
and
him
then
grab
surely he can still change.
We do see him grab the early play heal there. Obviously, the early play heals he's running in this deck are heal to stocks, which do bypass the anti-heal effects that he has in memory.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I believe the Charlotte ones are heal on plays. Yes, they are. So they those do get turned off. So Ben does have the advantage there in terms of trying to keep himself alive with heals and grabbing those as quick as he can just so he can early play them is probably going to be very important for him.
This is a perfect game that really demonstrates the power of this Zuiho combo. Ben's had 2 turns and he's already milled through all of his first deck. It's blisteringly fast.
132.
Yeah, between the Zuihos and the amount of extra sort of deck accessibility Kantai has, obviously any Kantai player knows what the Akatsuki card is, and between that and just all the other neat stuff that Kantai has access to, it is not hard to mill through a deck that quickly, especially when you're running a combo that top 4s.
Yeah, it can be to this deck in particular's detriment sometimes, because if Ben draws a second book and wants to combo again, he'll have to mill quite aggressively to get the climax combo version of the Zuiho back into waiting room so that you can change back into it.
That is true.
It's not always like something that he'll feel he has to do, because this board is pretty durable. He can hopefully count on it surviving for a turn or 2, so he won't need that many cards.
Yeah, the typical dynamic you seem to have with Zuiho is you have the 1-1 out, not the 1-1, you have the 1-0 out, do the combo, have it change into the 1-1, and you kind of just sit on that for the rest of the game. You've had your plussing off your level 1 combo, and you get additional plussing by these beefy bodies not dying.
Yeah.
But when you're suddenly in a position where they're threatened, then you kind of got to be a bit careful about it. And swapping back into the 1-0 is quite. It's not the easiest thing to do multiples of, because the cost is to rest 2 of your characters. So obviously, you can rest itself on something else, but you only have 2 back row slots, so getting that third is a bit tricky.
Yeah, changing into 2 is still fine though. I do want to point out Jon playing this Ayumi level 0 to put a climax into Ben's stock, so he's going to be refreshing without that. One of those cards where a lot of new players see the value in it. The more that as you become like a kind of seasoned player, you'd see that effect and kind of write it off a little bit. I think if it wasn't on a pay 1 clock 1 search, it probably wouldn't be seeing play. But here we can really see the value of an effect like that, just making Ben's refresh that little bit worse.
Yeah, I think we saw it in the stream for the round 1 game where Charlotte was also featured. That card on 2 occasions in that match shoved a climax into stock just before a refresh, taking it out, which was you can't underestimate the value of just 1 climax not going back into the deck.
So here is the other way, the other answer to Zuiho that Jon has. His brainstorm in the back row. will give out 500 every time he reverses a card. And he is tying in all 3 lanes right now.
It is a little bit of a gamble because if Ben has a counter in hand for one of these, then suddenly that becomes a lot less of a favorable. It's still probably a valuable trade because you get the Zuihos off the board, but you do leave more lanes open yourself in response, which can be a bit dicey. But it doesn't seem like Ben had a counter in hand for that, which means Jon trades in the one lane, but is going to end up winning in both of the other lanes in response.
It's incredibly strong against a combo. With like the entire goal of Ben's list is to win the board at level 1. So being able to shut that off is huge for Jon.
Very unfortunate for Ben there that he refreshed one of his gates after having one shoved back into stock by the level 0. It's quite sad to see that happen.
Yeah, this is not looking too pretty for Kancolle fans out there. Being able to win multiple lanes against Zuho is an insanely good position to be in.
I'll counter too.
Oh, very okay, interesting. Ben did in fact have the counter in hand, which, you know what? That's probably a good line for him to have taken because he can counter the. I actually did not pay attention to which lane Jon gave the power out to.
I assume the one he just swung with, because otherwise Ben wouldn't have counted. I think he hung on to it because it's winning a lane either way. The other lanes are tying, and it means he doesn't get put the extra card into refresh.
True. The counter being played on the second attack rather than the first is probably because Ben didn't want to have the counter going back into the deck in that refresh and just wanted to keep himself a bit more compressed.
Yeah, and he loses 2 lanes either way. Or he loses 2 Zuihos rather, and ties 2 lanes. It just gives him the option to
I'll counter here as well.
win one.
Oh, he had 2 counters in hand as well.
3's on. Level.
Very interesting.
Does keep 2 of those Zuihos alive.
There's at least one of the book combo back in waiting room if he does draw back into it. He is now almost a level behind though, so it's going to take some heroics to pull back, especially with the ever-present threat of the now level 3 looming over him.
Yep. Having a quick look through his waiting room, probably checking how many climaxes he's got. I believe he has enough in waiting room to be able to do the early play. Yeah, it looks like it. I think I only caught the one gate and the one book there.
The strength of an early play heal to stock is you can play down multiple where normally you wouldn't be able to. But thanks to that climax in stock, it's now the condition is shut off, so he couldn't even if he wanted to, which is quite unfortunate.
Though with Ben being on 2-0 now, the appeal of the early play is a little bit less than it would have been otherwise.
That's very true. And he does need to start generating some stock for the late game because this game has gone so fast. Both players hitting each other very aggressively. Jon has a completely open board, which gives Ben a lot of free damage on the board, so he probably doesn't want to be slamming a climax this turn unless he really feels like he's in a dire position.
This is a very good opportunity for Ben to stick some extra damage here. I believe Jon said he was 5 climaxes in bin there. And we saw him trigger one on his previous attacks and salvage another copy of the level 1 now climax, which would mean he's 7 out at the moment with what looks to be about 2 or 3 cards left in deck.
Yeah, he's 7 out that we know about, but we can make the read that because he took the salvage off the pants, he probably does not have another climax in hand.
Though I guess with Charlotte, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that he would hang on to the level 3 this early. It was in fact still in the deck and the last card in the deck, which was a little unfortunate for Jon there.
Yeah, I think Ben was ordering his attacks in this way to hope to capitalize in case that climax was the last card.
And it does seem like it paid off for him there. It's 5 climaxes going back in for Jon here, which is a little bit of a scary position. He does, like, Jon does have the damage lead here, but 5 in with not a massive amount of compression is a little bit scary.
2-3-1.
Especially considering the threats on Ben's board are just as present, if not even more present than they were before. So it's going to be very hard for him to open up direct slots and generate damage that way. He does have the extra pounds to slam down to try and cling onto his leech, but that will be losing out on card advantage. Ben triggering a gate here. I'm sure he's pretty upset about that.
But the damage does stick, and that pushes Jon up to level 2. Jon getting his red ready, just in case he wants to play the level 3 Misa, I believe her name is.
Dude, it's been a while since that show came out. I can't help you.
I'm just going off what Encore decks are translating these names as. Like it could be miles off.
Clocking the anti-change counter. Unfortunate that thanks to losing all 3 lanes, he didn't have the chance to play that last time.
He would have had the stock to do it as well. The anti-change cost on it only being pay 2 at level, but being an anti-change at level 1 for a fairly generous cost. It does come with a caveat that your opponent gets to put a level 0 into play for free.
Which means if they swing with their early play first, they get an additional stock, which is it can come up. It's quite interesting. We haven't seen a card like that printed since like Is the Order a Rabbit?
Yeah, that I was about to say that's the last set I remember seeing that effect being printed in. I've had it used against me a number of times.
I know, but when I was playing in like 2017, I was very afraid of playing early plays because I was expecting them to get anti-changed all the time. The environment was very different, but at the same time, you know, I was a very what's the word? Like unjaded player at the time. Jon miraculously gathering 2 more of his level 1 combos to play this turn, despite tri-fielding it.
That is pretty astounding, and as we know, he did salvage that pants at last turn, so he does have access to it for this one. He's just going to go for extra value rather than trying to super win board.
He is still tying with both of these Vihos because Ben didn't play C3 down.
Yeah, and I don't believe we saw Ben salvage multiple counters. He might have picked up the one off the gate. I didn't quite catch it, but we'll find out on this attack, I guess.
I'll use the counter.
Yeah,
Yes,
he did. He did in fact pick it up. Expected, to be honest. Doing it on that first attack much more. I guess it doesn't really change too much.
Yeah, there's a tie either way.
There is a tie either way.
Unless there's a second counter we don't know about. Ben's 3 cards in hand.
Yeah, either way, this does leave Jon with an empty board once again going into Ben's turn. And I think despite the amount of despite the lack of triggers in Ben's deck, I think that's where it shines. Is you've got these big bodies on the board that your opponent kind of has to crash into, and that just leaves empty slots for you to gain the damage lead from.
Yeah, that and being able to get into second deck in a slightly more compressed state so quickly. As we just saw, Ben cancelled 2 of those 3 attacks. It offers you more damage advantage than it initially appears when you're looking through the list.
For sure. If I was Jon and kind of respecting the deck that I'm up against there, I would maybe honestly consider siding the level 1s. Just because I've like John currently has the damage lead. Granted, it's only 1 point of damage, but it is still a damage lead, and you can kind of afford to keep guys on board at the sacrifice of a little bit of damage.
Yeah, I think he was counting on his level 1 combo milling to allow him to get his deck state in a point where Ben would be frustrated direct attacking, making his attacks more likely to cancel. It's a high risk, high reward line to take, whereas siding is a lot more low risk, low reward.
True.
I think because Charlotte's top end is so much scarier, John's okay with accelerating the game rather than trying to slow it down and play the game at level 1 and 2 for longer, which are where this Kancolle deck is at its strongest.
Yeah, very true. That once John hits level 3, that's when this is going to start being very interesting. Once he starts getting those nows on board. So another detail with the now that makes it so good is as well that when it attacks, you can potentially plus off that as well, where you just reveal top. If it's the correct trait, you just add it to hand, and that's not even tied to the combo at all. So you can already just kind of generate a lot of hand that you lose earlier in the game by having to crash your guys. But we can see John's looking pretty healthy on his hand at the moment.
Yeah, getting 2 turns of your level 1 climax combo will do that to a man.
Yeah.
and by stark contrast, Ben is relatively low on hand, although in fairness, he isn't having to play any more characters to generate attacks this turn. He is finally getting the Z3 out. We're starting to hit the point in the game where that's less relevant, but it is still... if John's trying to bag reverses with his level 1s, it'll be that much harder for him to do.
True. A lot of the reason why Ben's hand is a little bit lower than normal at the moment is because he's been playing a lot of counters this game. But that one Z3 would have, the 500 power off that would have made all the difference there.
Start here first. For 3.
Opting not to change into the climax version of Ziho because doing so would force him to refresh without this book in, and Ben's prioritizing damage over cards in hand.
Probably a sensible line to take at the moment, I think.
It is a sensible line. We can also assume that he's got at least one level 3 ready to go in hand if he is taking this line, because he didn't feel the need to dig towards one.
Yeah, we do see him trigger one there, and I think there is also one there on top of his waiting room. So if he has one in hand, that's only one more somewhere. Having it go into stock is kind of a awkward thing to have when you're about to refresh.
He does have a salvage brainstorm, so it's not the end of the world. He can pay it out and then try and grab it immediately.
True, though he is only on 6 stock at the moment, so if he does need to do that, that takes the possibility of a triple Iowa play off the table.
Having said that, though, considering the anti-damage and anti-heal station play, tri-laning the Iowa isn't as attractive as it might be in another matchup.
Yeah, for sure. When you take away the potential heal and the on-play burn, suddenly a on attack put a card on top of your opponent's decks is a lot less enticing.
We didn't mention it as it was happening, but John managing to skillfully and with grace triple cancel that turn. It's unfortunate for Ben. He is really trying to generate a lead through whatever means necessary, and it's just not working out for him so far.
Yeah, I think so far this is kind of following what I was predicting, where Ben had a very good early game just by having these Zuihos being a constant presence on the board. But now that we're approaching the late game, especially with John cancelling like he is at the moment, it's looking a lot more in John's favor here.
Yeah, it's John managing to cling on to a damage lead is very important for him. It'll mean that he's able to likely hit Ben to level 3 first. Which, I mean, if Ben was running an actual like threatening top end could be pretty bad.
At level 3 blue now.
Because it means he doesn't have to play around the nows and things like that.
Mm.
But the way this matchup works in particular, I think Jon's just grateful to have a damage lead.
Yeah, just before Jon refreshing here, we've got Ben just checking for a couple of important cards. I think he's asked for the level 3 now, as well as her climax combo, as well as the
yellow level 3. No,
the cancel burn and counters, I believe.
Okay, 2 of those there. Yeah, that's one. Okay.
It is impossible in webcam events to properly pay attention to where cards are, especially because when people trigger, they tend to just flash them past the camera and don't give you a proper look at them.
It is one of the few downsides of webcam events, but alas, in the current climate, it's a necessary evil.
Yeah, and I would recommend everyone to when you're playing your games, take the time to ask your opponent what's in waiting room, things like that, because it's better to get that information slowly than to not have it at all.
Definitely. As we learned from those questions there, Jon had that refresh with only one of the level 3 now going back in, which is pretty powerful. But all
It's
4 of the
telling.
climaxes going in as well. So he is going to need to do a little bit of digging for some of those.
Doesn't matter where they stand, they're all just suicided.
Sure.
Yeah, there's not actually a lot of ways for him to dig in the late game. There are no
Pants.
draw to drop ones or top X's, anything like that.
Yeah, a lot of the time you tend to see people grab those combos by just triggering more pants.
The Iowa climax is going back.
Okay, and now we see Jon reversing the roles and asking Ben in detail what's in his waiting room.
Just 2.
If Ben can hang on level 2 for a little bit longer, that will be really big for him. Jon only having 1 soul swings on board raises the likelihood of that happening, but he might just be able to love tap him up.
Definitely. I think this is
1, 2, 3.
Refresh.
try to push Jon up to level 3. I think if there was any time for that to be a good time to push Jon up, it would be in this scenario.
2 sticks.
Unfortunately, though, Ben is just going to eat all of this damage.
For 1.
Sticks.
Jon perfectly knocking him up to 3, very unfortunate.
And it's not yours.
And now Ben's left with a pretty rough decision because he's not encouraged to extend the play state at all.
Clocking an interesting decision at the moment, I think. I don't really know what he's digging for with it, but
Ironically, I think he's looking for more heal to stocks. Potentially trying to look for the Iowa combo to stack cards on top, but I don't think he wants to play a 1k1 onto this open board.
he did in fact have a heal to stock in hand. I'm assuming he probably got that off the clock, which was kind of lucky.
Either that or he clocked knowing that he wanted to play that down. I think that's the play I would hope he would make, because otherwise it is pretty sketchy.
Mm.
Changing into the plussing version of the level 1, so likely playing a book down instead.
Which is kind of telling of its own, really.
To fight thin air.
Like, on the one hand, you are pushing some damage because you have got this open board, but Jon has just refreshed, and 2 level 3s on board with these 2 soul base swings already directing for 3. A climax turning them into 4s is it's quite a big gamble, to be honest.
I think Ben was not super confident in his deck state and wanted to mill down, so I think he'll be quite begrudging of hitting 2 on that brainstorm.
Yeah, on the flip side, he does get to profit with some Iowas in hand for his troubles.
If he can make it to next turn, they'll definitely come in handy.
Yeah, one thing to note about the current state of Jon's board is in his deck, he is only running 2 copies of the assist the for level 3s that gives the extra power to the nows, and I saw one going into his clock at level 1, and I believe it went in with the refresh, but I've not really been seeing them being like thrown around anywhere else. So I'm wondering if he's got one in hand ready to go for those nows. If he doesn't, I think that is going to be very good for Ben, because without that level assist, those nows are not big at all.
Yeah, and yeah, they will survive if he can force Ben to side them. But with 4 pants into refresh, it's unlikely he'll be able to pull that together.
Yeah, I think asking for the amount of that pants specifically going back in is probably the most valuable piece of information Ben could have taken from that, because he knows that even if Jon plays a bunch of nows, unless he's drawn into that pants immediately off the clock, he cannot do the combo in response, which is that's the opening that Ben needs to push a lot of damage.
Ben grabbing a Jinsu, which is a climax searcher off that top 4. Pretty interesting choice. Means that he is banking on playing the Iowa climax next time. Potentially paying the 2 stock to heal with them, depending on what their game state at the time is.
And he does manage to level Jon up to level 3 here.
Not sure. I mean, I think that now is an inevitability at this point, and he's just got to try and take that knock on the chin.
Yeah, when you don't have access to any bird effects due to the anti-damage, I think you have to play the game expecting to have to deal with now.
Yeah,
which is a really grim way to play the game.
Yeah, with no bounce effects, not even a lowly wind trigger in the list, there is really no answer that Ben can find other than just hoping Jon doesn't pull the pants together.
Yeah, the damage that Jon took there serves another sort of reason why it's such a good thing, because he only cancelled the 1 instance of damage with the level 1 now climax, which means that if Jon goes through his attacks here and triggers a pants, he does not get to salvage the correct climax off it. So as long as Jon doesn't just draw into the correct pants, then Ben's pretty safe from these now combos at the moment, which he's going to try and take that opportunity as soon as he gets it.
I was interesting to see Jon. Did he clog one of the nows, or did he search for it?
I didn't quite catch that there. One thing that was kind of interesting to see there, which was using Ben's tech against him. Well, not against him, but in Jon's favor. There was Jon clocked, plays the healer, and obviously we're calling it an anti-heal, but it's more of like heal deterrent, where you can still take the heal, but if you don't pay an extra 2 stock to heal, then you instead you also take a damage on top of it, which is why people refer to it as a quote unquote anti-heal. But in this instance, Jon actually paid the extra 2 stock to take an extra climax out for that, which I didn't catch which one it was, but based on how kind of eager he was to do it, I think it might have been the level 3 climax.
I think it was the level 1 climax that he triggered on his first climax combo turn. But this is going to be a really grindy level 3 game, so I think Jon is just excited to get the extra cancel into his refresh.
True, especially when you had an extra climax buried that deep. That extra 2 stock is actually quite useful, especially since the now doesn't require any stock for her combo at all. One thing I noticed as well, looking at the level 3 lineup, is Charlotte doesn't have any top. Well, Jon in his list isn't running any kind of top X's or anything, so it is just kind of down to drawing that pants trigger in while the correct one is in the bin. Or he does also have the level 0 climax swapper, which is another avenue he could take, but that is a little bit more card intensive.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the results of these triggers here are going to be very important for how Ben plays his next turn.
Jon being very careful with his play and positioning this turn, trying to set up as many mitigating factors as possible.
Yeah. He would know from looking at Ben's list that Ben isn't running any anti-change counters or bombs of any sort. Not that that would matter right now. But most importantly is because of that, he isn't running any level 2 counters, which are a little bit bigger than you would see the level 1s at. So instead, just you've only really got the Z3 power pump from playing an act and a 2k backup to worry about. So there's only a potential of 3,000 more power that could be added to any one of these lanes.
Yeah, although if he does try to win a couple of the lanes by close margins, Ben will be able to split that power across and win both of those lanes potentially.
Very true, but I think with how many times Ben has responded that way this game, I think Jon is going to try and be a bit more careful, especially since he now has that back row out with the now being 13-5 on the offense and the other level 3 being, I think, 11-5. Yeah, 11-5. Those are some pretty respectable numbers.
Yeah, Ben could only win one of these lanes even if he put in his best effort. So
another interesting card Jon's played here is a one of tech in his deck, which the important effect in this instance is the self tap to give an anniversary or ability trait character 1500 power, which he decided to give to the now in the middle, just wanting to make sure that that thing does kill what it's up against. The other effect it comes with is when you trigger a pants, you can draw and discard a card, which lets you profit off taking something off the pants trigger while also not running the risk of just having it stuck in hand for a bit.
I think, ironically, Jon will be hoping to draw into. Actually, no, he wouldn't want a second copy of the Pants because he's only got one now in play. But you know, if he did have to, he'd be able to draw into a second one and discard a spare card.
Yeah, that pants trigger there being really important for him.
I think in a funny way, it works a little bit in Ben's favor because now he can play knowing that that climax is in hand rather than trying to dance around and maybe trying to make a play hoping that Jon doesn't have it available.
True. That would be an interesting way to kind of think around about it because the now is an incredibly big body on the board, and I don't think Ben can very consistently get bigger than it. So I think either way he would be just kind of shoving whatever in front of it.
Yeah. Like we said at the start, he doesn't have many soul triggers, so he doesn't really have the potential to swing over it. Or to side and still deal damage. I should say.
Yeah, he would require a level 3 in play plus a climax and the soul trigger to go with it, which honestly is a not impossible. Like if he's going for a heavy Iowa play, it would be safe to assume that he would also have a gate in hand.
Yeah.
But the more problematic issue there is the soul trigger, which we know there are at least 2 out due to the fact that he had both he had 2 early players on board, which leaves only 5 more possibilities, and that goes down for every Iowa that becomes visible.
We don't know if Ben has the gate, but we do know that he has the Jinsu to search it if he wants to.
Reveal top, nothing happens.
Revealing top and not burning because of the anti-burn in play.
So the reveal, I believe, is still compulsory, so he does get that information.
Mm-hmm. Even if it was optional, he would probably take it anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, knowing that, well, I mean, I guess it's not a huge surprise for this list, revealing a non-trigger on top of deck, but it does just give him the guarantee to know that he's not over-swinging into any one of these lanes.
Or at the very least on this this first lane. There's a maximum of 4 soul triggers left unaccounted for here, at least from our perspective.
How big is the yellow level 3?
13.
It's unfortunate for Ben. Even if he played down a second Iowa, he couldn't get off a second heal. He's just one stock short of being able to front that cost. It would send him into a pretty gnarly deck state going into Jon's next turn. So maybe the heal wouldn't be worth it, but you never know, right?
That is very true.
Choosing to not take that blank trigger, maybe because he is hoping to trigger off the middle lane. It's getting pretty do or die here for them. He is not able to heal down enough to get out of range of vanilla swings from Jon. So it's really
Get the one, get this.
although being able to grab a heal to stock, that's pretty important.
Healed stock is quite useful, but hitting a climax off the refresh damage there is less than ideal.
No. Yes, it does
It
actually.
doesn't.
Yeah, I think any line that Ben could take where he's counting on triple canceling the coming turn is it's sailing away. There's not much hope for that panning out.
It is a scary position to be in. I imagine that Ben is probably going to go for the line here of playing the combo, being forced aside with the Iowa, and just taking the heal and paying the stock to keep it.
He is using the lesser known third effect on this early play heal to stock, which is act, pay 1, gain 2,000 power. Hoping to win that side lane to scare Jon off from, to make it impossible for Jon to change back into the
you heal and you
heal.
stack my deck from the waiting room, don't you?
Correct.
And there is the gate.
So let's do the good old.
Yeah, as expected, we see Jon discarding the climax to do the now effect. We've mentioned this a lot, but we've not quite clarified the effect for those who don't know. With that specific with that specific pants in hand, at the start of your opponent's attack step, you can discard it to force the character opposite that now to side attack it.
You also get to search a card, which is a tiny little bit of extra compression. A little bit inconsequential, but for all you stats fans out there, definitely swings the odds in your favor of canceling your opponent's offensive turn.
Yeah, it is always a nice little bonus. That now does honestly generate quite a lot of extra cards when you can get things going with it. This is going to be a difficult turn for Ben. I'm not going to lie.
I'll front here first.
That is not what you want to see there.
It's insult to injury at this point.
Yeah, being 4 out already with a deck that that stacked is kind of concerning. And he does in fact take the heal and pays the 2 stock to be able to keep it, which at this point in the game, not surprised at all. You kind of need to, really.
I think it will force Jon to stick 2 attacks instead of just 1. So that is a big difference. It gives Ben that much of a higher likelihood of surviving. Although choosing to trigger the book, not the line I would take personally.
Fortunately, Jon's deck state was just too good there, triple canceling all of that, and that puts Ben in a very dangerous position here. He is going to need, he's going to need some good luck here with his deck state to survive this turn, I think.
Yeah, Ben is picking a god and praying to it right now. Is Jon basically planning how to kill Ben, not that I don't think there will be a contingency plan for in case that doesn't happen.
Unfortunately, with Charlotte, its contingency plan is just, do I have an extra pants in hand? If yes, don't worry about it. If no, don't worry about it. Carry on.
The contingency plan is the same as the main plan. That is part of what makes this deck so strong.
Boost up the side now.
Starting to give the Now a little bit more power. Those Nows looking pretty hench right now. 13.5 and 15k in the other lane. That back row is quite a big reason why Charlotte has become a lot stronger at the moment. On top of the level 1 combo that they earned, this 2-1 back row makes the Nows big enough to do things on the offense and survive on the defensive to be able to actually do its combo.
Yeah, it was very rare for people to be running this combo before this new set. But when they were, the biggest problem was you could not use it to swing over anything like within the same realm of power because it's such a high value counter target for your opponent that they're almost guaranteed to win that lane at any cost.
It's a very hard combo to play around, except for when you're just killing things when they're attacking into you, and this back row has eliminated that problem for the most part.
Yeah, there are very few combinations of cards and counters that will get you in the realm of 15k.
And that's not even to say anything about the fact that the back row also gives the Nowls hexproof, meaning
Yeah.
the other route of normally getting rid of them, which was wins or on-play bounces, just don't exist now.
Ben makes one of the 2 cancels that he needs.
The more important swing here that he probably wants to cancel is going to be the Now, just to give him a little bit more damage to play with here. He is still possibly surviving this turn. It all depends on Jon triggering here.
This is a nail biter.
This is dangerously close, and it still is just very dependent on this last trigger here.
Yeah, Jon has revealed 2 climaxes from this fresh deck, so Ben does have a chance if he does survive this turn, which it looks like he's going to actually be able to mount a comeback.
And Jon unfortunately did not trigger there, and Ben, even though he took the damage, is still alive at the moment and managed to kill one of the Nows on the due to the backup as well. Jon decided to pay 3 Encore, just giving him that other option for another lane to force a side into if he does have the climax in hand. Also, just an extra body on board to soak, just to reduce the incoming damage a little bit.
Yeah, a big problem with this Kancolle list is the lack of reach. I mean, anti-burn shuts off a lot of reach options anyway, but even if that wasn't in play, the Iowa can't push that much damage out very consistently. So yeah, buying the Now back is basically a minus soul in one lane, which is a really funny way to think about that, but it's very important.
He does manage to land into the Iowa here. If he's got an extra gate in hand, he's looking at an interesting position here, being able to stack the deck a little bit more. If Jon doesn't have the pants in hand, this might look a little bit dicey for him here.
Yeah, Ben won't be able to heal, but I think that's the least of his worries right now.
Yeah, that's the
There it is.
that's the bottom of the list here of priorities in this line of play. He does get the early play out, however, and does the heal to stock, which does bypass the anti-heal in memory due to the wording on it.
Yeah, checks for when a card from clock goes to a waiting room, and because it's not going to a waiting room, it skirts around it in a very lawyery fashion.
Attack phase.
Interesting that he did grab the heal to stock and not the Iowa. I think we can read from that he doesn't have gate. Yep. So he's just
Cancel.
looking for anything really.
Unfortunately, Ben here does need a trigger on one of these attacks and for both of these to stick. If he doesn't land that, that's not a good position.
For 2.
He's out of luck, unfortunately.
That is unfortunate.
He did manage. He did crash into both of those nows, opening up the slots to try and encourage Jon to overswing.
Yeah, unfortunately for Ben here, he is refreshing with, I want to say all 8 back in. Don't quote me on that, but he's going to be left on 3/6 after that refresh damage.
Yeah, Jon can only swing for 1 damage in one of these lanes, and every other lane is an overswing. But he only needs one of these attacks to stick to close out the game.
And it is very easy for Jon to just shift his board around a little bit and get a 2-2-1 swing going.
All 8.
All 8, yeah. This is an all 8 back in refresh for Ben here.
Which means if Jon doesn't trigger on this attack into a Katsuki, that's game. Because there's no climax hiding on the bottom of deck.
Yeah, this is true. I don't think Jon has any way to immediately top check his deck in the main phase. Oh no, correct me. That level 0 he has on the front row does in fact top 2 rearrange on play.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, he does trigger on that one soul swing.
Interesting.
There's a chance.
Is an interesting play to make of just going straight for the swings, going for the what? Well, after that trigger is now a 3-3-2 swing, rather than shifting the board around a little bit and going for some more agreeable numbers. Didn't matter though, still died.
Good game there for Ben.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate.
Kind of hard to do 2 times a triple cancel though.
Yeah, I got scared.
Yeah, I mean, really on display is the strength of these the Charlotte cards. Having a level 1 combo that can tie with a level 1 that's trying to wall out their game. And
having a level 1 that can threaten even level 2 standby targets is impressive.
Yeah, it's and we saw Ben being forced to play out counters, losing out on a ton of hand, and eventually just letting the game escape from them.
Yeah.
Let's jump over to the players and ask them their thoughts on the game.
Hello guys.
Hello.
Yo.
That was a really down to the wire game towards the end there.
Oof. Tell me about that. It was good.
After you started playing the now combos, we were kind of on the fence as to how it was going to go, and seeing Ben pull off those cancels afterwards and being in quite a good position after you only had the one now to work with was it was pretty interesting to watch how both of you were playing around those turns.
Yeah. Well, probably you go first, Ben.
Sure. I mean, there's not really much to say. Like, I know that Charlotte is very constrained on its early game resources, especially like at level 0. You don't have a lot of anything to play with, so I was playing really aggressively. And you got to level 1, played 2 zeros, did nothing. So I was like, oh great, he hasn't comboed me on level 1. That's my chance to really push a lead. And then you triple cancelled, and I was like, well, there goes my lead. And then I ate it all, went to 1.2. And then from that point, it was like I was always winning on cards and board, but I was never winning on damage, which was really annoying. So I was like constantly fighting behind, and because I was winning on the board, it gave me less chances to dig for the Iowas. And like I said, we were discussing before the interview. If I had on that second to last turn, if I had managed to field a double Iowa instead of single Iowa, double Tashkent, I could have sided with the two Iowas, stacked 2 clean, swing for 4 guaranteed, and then just swinging for 2 and kill them on the next turn. But
Yeah.
like I was too focused on staying alive, like grabbing Tashkent's the heal and things like that. Trying to make sure I was refreshing with 7 or 8, and I never really got the chance to find my pieces, which was a bit annoying. So half of my game plan went well, and the other half was just he just cancelled a little bit too much.
Yeah.
The cancels did fall pretty good. Not gonna
I
lie.
definitely got the vibe that Ben was constantly trying to break back into the game, and then Jon was just canceling one too many times to prevent that from really paying off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it. I wouldn't. I think it would be fair to say that I was in control of the game. Like Jon was really struggling to field combos every turn. He was
Yeah.
crashing a lot, even when leaving a board wasn't beneficial. I was hitting for 2/2/2s at one point, but then it's like he got to reach the now turns without too much concern, which I couldn't stop. And at that point, it just started to then I was really on the back foot to just stay in the game.
Yeah, I think that was our initial assessment of the matchup where Ben, you had the big advantage in the early game because your Zuihos can just dominate the board, even against the big power numbers that Charlotte can reach. And even without the Z3 on the board early on, you still managed that really well due to having loads of backups in hand. But once it reaches the late game, between having the anti-damage and the anti-heal on board, it becomes a lot harder for your board to really do too much against the Nows if they get going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not
Would
too
be
bad
interesting.
because I can always guarantee the damage compared to Jon's deck. He's got damage scries and he has the burn 5 that he's not playing the combo for it, but
Yeah, it's just a healer.
his soul beat sticks aren't they're just not as valuable as my soul beat sticks at the end of the day.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Pretty much. It's
Not to take control of the interview, but the thing about
no,
the thing about
it's all right.
Kantai that I really enjoy is the game plan is so straightforward. I'm only playing 2 level 3s, one of which is an early play healer, the other one which is my finisher. So I don't have to worry too much about my macro game. I instead get to focus on my micro game, which is what I think I'm really good at. So if I'm at level 0, I need to think I'm going into level 1 next turn. I need my combo. I need my Z3s. How do I get there? And the deck has so many pieces for it. It's got Akatsuki, it's got Brainstorm, it's got Inazuma, and all this, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, we
So-
weren't too surprised to see you pull off the triple Zuiho going into your level 1, just with
Yeah.
how easy it is to pull that off.
Exactly. So engineering the turns is something that I'm naturally very good at. It's just I engineered the turns where I could really, really pull a lead, and then I just didn't pull a lead, which is pretty much like that. It's not a really exciting way to put it, but that's just kind of how it was. It was my game to lose, basically.
Yeah. It's like how. Oh well. While I was thinking all the way to work, my only chance to really gain a lead would have been level 1 if I hit, or even if I hit combo and at least break even each turn. But mainly, I'd have needed the back row sooner to just get that little bit of a more power pump on the first swing,
Yeah.
rather than just trade. I could have got win a little bit if you didn't have the counter, win and just try and edge like that.
Yeah,
But
I
even
definitely
then,
got
it's
quite
just
lucky in that
stop
I had
gaps.
counters. Exactly. One counter changes all of that. And having having counters into that level 3 was really good. It was lucky for me, but then I couldn't capitalize on it and do anything with it. It was just play the counter, and then I had no tempo, which is unfortunate. Because without the counter and without Z3s, I can't defend against your level 1 combo. So the moment you also wipe my, if at any point you had wiped my board, I think the game would have been over.
Yeah, it's just cracking your board was a bit more difficult. You always seem to have the counter. That's when I just started ditching my counters hard. It's like, yep, that plan's gone. Time I just take wins, like take the damage wins where I can, and then just burn through the deck.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the lack of soul triggers in your deck was impactful much in this matchup?
I don't think
Oh.
so, because I'm guaranteed, like, the now is basically guaranteed no damage because of result of that, but I don't mind because it still gives me 3 stacks. So while my overall soul output is lower, because I'm stacking 2 to 3 cards a turn, and then the last one is swinging for, like, 1 or 2 damage, it's it's more guaranteed damage in the long run, provided I can keep my compression up.
Yeah.
Which, if
Well,
I
I
had
didn't
seen
think
more
on that.
Iowas, it would have been fine. But as you saw on that last turn, I had all 4 gates in my waiting room, and even though I had 2 Iowas in hand, I couldn't Junyo for the gate again to go again. So I lost out on, again, more like guaranteed damage there.
Yeah, it was quite unfortunate seeing a lot of the times that either all of the gates or all of the Iowas were just everywhere else but your hand.
Yeah, which is, again, it's the only downside to the deck not having to worry about its late game, in that when you get to the late game, if you're not already set up, it can be really hard to like get there because you can then no longer engineer back to like salvage Iowas or search for them because because as much as you'd like to play a Zuiho to combo into the Iowa, you're already level 3.
Yeah, and that game did go incredibly quickly, so you didn't have a ton of time to get ready for level 3.
Yeah, there were opportunities, I just didn't see them. Like, the triple Zuiho time would have been great for like clutching 2 Iowas and a Jinyo, but by that point they were already all out of the deck, and I had more important targets at the time, like Tashkent's and Verni's.
Oh, you always seem to hit it exactly when I didn't want you to. That
Yeah.
you managed to salvage it back, drew it right when you needed it, hit the brainstorm to salvage it right when I didn't want it.
Yeah, I think that was the only way. That was the only way I was going to stay in the game, which is just healing and trying to cancel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just couldn't. It didn't go far enough.
Well, overall, that was a really interesting game to watch. Both of you played really well, and congratulations, John, and commiserations, Ben.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it was a good game. I enjoyed it. Then again, I always enjoy playing Charlotte. The
I
only
mean,
deck I've played all year.
it's funny you say that because generally people don't enjoy playing against Charlotte. But yeah, that
I
wasn't too
do.
bad. Yeah, that wasn't too bad. I think, yeah, fate just wasn't in the cards. I'm not upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did give me a run for my money.
I think that is all we have time for today, and we will be catching everyone next week for our streamed games, which we will be finding out not next week, within the next few days for our streamed games, which we'll be finding out soon. And thank you both for being on stream. Thank you, Ewan, for casting with me.
No problem.
And we will catch everyone next time.